I came back from a 2-week vacation to find I was no longer CEO of my own company. My business partner had held an emergency board meeting while I was gone, forged my signature on documents, and reduced my 50% ownership to 20%. He thought I wouldn't fight back. He was wrong. My name is Brennan Cole. I'm 41 years old, and until 2 weeks ago, I was the CEO and co-founder of a software company worth $4 million. I built it from nothing over 8 years with my business partner, Tucker Marsh. We were 50-50 partners, equal owners, equal decision makers, or so I thought. This is the story of how my best friend since college tried to steal my company while I was on vacation. And this is the story of how I took it back. I met Tucker in 2008 during our junior year at Oregon State. We were both computer science majors, both ambitious, both convinced we were going to build something big someday. We spent countless late nights in the computer lab, working on projects, arguing about code, dreaming about startups. After graduation, we went separate ways for a few years. I worked at Microsoft in Seattle. Tucker bounced between a few smaller tech companies in Portland, but we stayed in touch. We'd meet up every few months, grab beers, talk about the tech industry. In 2016, Tucker called me with an idea. Enterprise workflow automation, he said. Small to mid-size companies need better internal systems, but they can't afford custom solutions. We build a platform that's flexible, scalable, and affordable. I loved it. Within 3 months, I'd quit Microsoft, moved back to Portland, and we'd filed the paperwork for our company. StreamOps Solutions. We were 50-50 partners from day one. Equal equity, equal voting rights. We wrote it into the operating agreement, signed by both of us, notarized. Neither of us could make major decisions without the other's approval. That was the deal. That was the foundation of everything we built. The first 2 years were brutal. We worked out of Tucker's apartment, living on savings and credit cards. We built the first version of our platform ourselves, just the two of us, coding 14-hour days, surviving on coffee and takeout. By year 3, we had our first real clients, small businesses mostly, a dental office management company, a regional logistics firm, a nonprofit healthcare network. They paid us monthly subscription fees, and slowly, we started making real revenue. By year 5, we had 40 employees and were pulling in $2 million annually. We moved into a real office space downtown. We hired a chief financial officer, a head of sales, a marketing director. We were a legitimate company. Tucker and I had different roles. I was CEO, handling strategy, client relationships, big picture vision. Tucker was CTO, overseeing product development, managing the engineering team. It worked. We complemented each other. Our personal relationship stayed strong too. Tucker was the best man at my wedding in 2019. I was at the hospital when his daughter was born in 2020. We had family dinners together. Our wives were friends. It wasn't just business, it was family. By early 2024, StreamOps was valued at $4 million. We had 60 employees, offices in Portland and Austin, and we were in talks with potential investors about a Series A funding round that could take us to $10 million. Everything was going exactly as we'd planned. In March 2024, my wife Simone convinced me to take a real vacation. "You haven't had more than 3 days off in 8 years, she said. "We're going to Greece. 2 weeks. No laptop." I was hesitant. There were always fires to put out at the company, always decisions to make. But Simone was right. I was burned out. And Tucker assured me everything would be fine. "I've got it covered," he said. "You deserve a break, man. Go. Relax. The company will still be here when you get back." So in late March, Simone and I flew to Athens. We spent 2 weeks island hopping. Santorini, Mykonos, Crete. I barely checked my phone. I didn't log into email once. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. It was the biggest mistake of my life. We landed in Portland on a Tuesday afternoon. I turned my phone off airplane mode and watched as notifications flooded in. Emails, missed calls, texts from employees, from our CFO, from board members. The most recent was from Tucker, sent 3 hours earlier. "Welcome back. We need to talk. Come to the office." No context, no explanation, just those 8 words. I dropped Simone at home and drove straight to the office. It was 4 p.m. The parking lot was mostly empty, unusual for that time of day. I walked in through the front entrance. The receptionist, Maya, looked up at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Surprise? Pity? "Mr. Cole," she said quietly, "Tucker's in the conference room. He's expecting you." I walked down the hallway to the main conference room. Through the glass walls, I could see Tucker sitting at the head of the table, talking with our CFO Harrison and two people I didn't recognize. Suits, probably lawyers. I opened the door. "What's going on?" Tucker looked up. His expression was neutral, almost cold. "Brennan, good. Have a seat." I sat down across from him. "What's this about?" Tucker slid a folder across the table. "Board meeting minutes. From last week." I opened the folder. The first page was a summary of a board meeting held on March 28th, 5 days ago, while I was still in Greece. The meeting had addressed leadership concerns and strategic restructuring. There was a vote. The result, I was removed as CEO, effective immediately. Tucker was named interim CEO. My ownership stake was reduced from 50% to 20%. Tucker's stake increased to 60%. The remaining 20% was allocated to employee incentive options. I read it twice. Then I looked up at Tucker. "What the hell is this?" "It's a restructuring," Tucker said calmly. "The board felt it was necessary." "What board?" "We don't have a board. It's just you and me. We established an advisory board last year." Harrison, the CFO, interjected. "You and Tucker appointed 3 external advisors. They have voting authority on certain matters." I stared at him. "I never appointed anyone. I never agreed to any of this." Tucker pulled out another document. "Your signature is right here, Brennan, on the advisory board resolution, dated November 2023. He turned the page toward me. There was my signature, or something that looked like my signature. "I didn't sign this," I said. "It's notarized," one of the lawyers said. "Your signature, your printed name, and a notary seal." I looked at the signature again. It was close, very close. But something was off. The middle initial. There was a J between my first and last name. Brennan J. Cole. I don't have a middle name. Never have. "This is fake," I said, my voice rising. "I didn't sign any of this, and my middle initial isn't J. I don't have a middle initial." Tucker's expression didn't change. "Brennan, I understand you're upset, but the documents are legally binding. The board voted. This is happening. You forged my signature." "That's a serious accusation," the lawyer said. "If you have evidence of forgery, you're welcome to pursue legal action. But until then, these documents stand." I stood up, my hands shaking. "You're stealing my company." Tucker finally showed emotion, a flicker of something. Guilt? Anger? "I'm protecting the company. You've been distracted, Brennan. Unfocused. The investors we're talking to, they've expressed concerns about leadership stability. This restructuring positions us better for the Series A round." "By cutting me out?" "You're not cut out. You still own 20%. You'll still be compensated. But the company needs stronger leadership moving forward." I looked around the table. Harrison wouldn't meet my eyes. The lawyers looked bored, like this was just another Tuesday. Tucker's face was stone. "Get out of my office," I said quietly. "It's not your office anymore," Tucker replied. "Security will escort you out. We'll need your building access card, your company laptop, and your corporate credit card." 2 security guards I'd never seen before stepped into the room. I could have fought. I could have screamed, but I didn't. I pulled my access card from my wallet, set it on the table, and walked out. I sat in my truck in the parking lot for 20 minutes, trying to process what had just happened. 8 years of work, half my life savings invested, my best friend, gone, stolen. I called my wife. I could barely get the words out. "He took it," I said. "Tucker took the company." I drove home in a daze. That night, Simone and I sat at the kitchen table, going through every document I could find related to StreamOps. Operating agreements, partnership contracts, board resolutions. "We need a lawyer," Simone said. "A good one." The next morning, I contacted Eliza Vance, a corporate attorney a former colleague had recommended. I explained everything. She asked me to send every document I had. 2 days later, she called me back. "This is complex," she said, "but there are some things working in your favor. First, The forged signature. You said there's a middle initial that doesn't exist? Yes. Brennan J. Cole. I don't have a middle initial. Never have. It's not on my driver's license, my social security card, my birth certificate. Nothing. That's good. We can prove forgery. Second, the operating agreement. It clearly states that any changes to equity distribution require unanimous approval from all partners. If Tucker forged your signature, that resolution is void. What do? We file an emergency injunction. We ask the court to freeze all corporate decisions pending an investigation into the forgery. Then, we build the case. How long will that take? Eliza paused. Best case? 3 months. Worst case? A year or more. And it's going to be expensive, Brennan. We're talking tens of thousands in legal fees. Maybe more. I didn't care about the cost. This was my company, my life's work. Do it, I said. We filed the injunction 2 days later. The court scheduled a hearing for the following week. In the meantime, I started digging. I went through every email, every document, every piece of communication I had with Tucker over the past 2 years. I was looking for evidence, anything that showed he'd been planning this, and I found it. In October 2023, 5 months before my vacation, Tucker had sent me an email about formalizing our governance structure. He suggested we bring in outside advisors to help with strategic planning. I'd replied, sounds good in theory, but let's talk about it in person before we commit to anything. We never talked about it in person. I'd forgotten about the email entirely, but according to the documents Tucker presented, we'd held a formal board meeting in November 2023, appointed 3 advisors, and I'd signed a resolution authorizing them to vote on company matters. Except I hadn't. That meeting never happened, and more. In January 2024, Tucker had emailed our CFO Harrison asking about equity restructuring options and mechanisms for removing a co-founder. Harrison had responded with a detailed breakdown of how equity dilution worked. Tucker had been planning this for months. The court hearing was tense. Tucker's lawyer argued that all the documents were legitimate, that I'd simply forgotten about signing them, and that my accusations of forgery were an attempt to sabotage a necessary business restructuring. Eliza countered with evidence. She presented my birth certificate, my driver's license, my passport, none of which showed a middle initial. She presented the original operating agreement, which required unanimous approval for equity changes. She presented the email trail showing Tucker had been researching how to remove me. The judge listened carefully. Then he made his ruling. Based on the evidence presented, there are serious questions about the authenticity of the signatures on the advisory board resolution and the equity restructuring document. I am granting a temporary injunction, freezing all corporate decisions related to equity distribution and executive roles pending a full forensic investigation. Mr. Cole will retain his 50% ownership and his position as co-CEO until this matter is resolved. Tucker's face went pale. The forensic investigation took 6 weeks. A handwriting expert analyzed the signatures. She concluded that the signature on the November 2023 resolution was highly likely to be a forgery based on stroke patterns, pressure points, and the erroneous middle initial. A digital forensics team examined the notarized documents. They discovered that the notary seal was fake. The notary whose name appeared on the document had never notarized anything for me. In fact, that notary had been inactive since 2019. Tucker had fabricated everything. In May 2024, we went back to court for a final hearing. This time, the evidence was overwhelming. Tucker's lawyer tried to argue that the errors were clerical mistakes, that Tucker had been acting in good faith to protect the company. But the judge wasn't buying it. Mr. Marsh, the judge said, you forged your business partner's signature on multiple legal documents. You used a fake notary seal. You systematically attempted to defraud Mr. Cole out of his ownership stake in a company he co-founded. This is not a clerical error. This is fraud. The ruling was swift. All of Tucker's changes were voided. I was reinstated as CEO. My 50% ownership was restored. Tucker was removed from all executive roles. But the judge went further. Mr. Marsh, given the severity and premeditation of your actions, the court is also ruling that you have violated the operating agreement's fiduciary duty clause. Mr. Cole has the right to buy out your remaining ownership at fair market value, and you are prohibited from any future involvement in StreamOps Solutions. Tucker tried to appeal. His lawyer filed motion after motion, but everyone was denied. In July 2024, we reached a settlement. Tucker would sell his 50% stake back to the company for $1.8 million, well below the $2 million it would have been worth in a fair buyout, but reflecting the damage caused by fraudulent actions, as the judge put it. I borrowed money, took out loans, and bought him out. By August, I owned 100% of StreamOps. Tucker was gone, but the damage was done. The months of legal battles had cost us clients. 3 of our biggest customers left, concerned about leadership instability. Half our engineering team quit, unsure about the company's future. Our Series A funding talks fell apart. Investors don't want drama. I had won the legal battle, but the company was wounded. I spent the next 6 months rebuilding. I hired a new CTO. I personally reached out to every client we'd lost and explained what had happened. Some came back, others didn't. I brought in a business coach who helped me restructure operations. I implemented new internal controls, checks and balances, so that no single person could ever do what Tucker did again. Slowly, we recovered. By early 2025, we were back to 50 employees and growing again. We signed 2 major new clients. Revenue was climbing, but I was different. I didn't trust the same way anymore. I had every document reviewed by a lawyer before I signed it. I hired an independent auditor to review our books quarterly. I kept copies of everything, backed up in 3 different locations. I also reached out to the 3 advisors Tucker had supposedly appointed to our board. 2 of them had never even heard of StreamOps. Tucker had used their names without permission. The 3rd had briefly consulted for us 2 years ago, but had no idea he'd been listed as a board member. They were as shocked as I was. I thought about pressing criminal charges against Tucker. Eliza said we had a strong case, fraud, forgery, maybe even identity theft. But I was exhausted. The civil case had drained me emotionally and financially. I just wanted to move on. So I didn't pursue it. Maybe that was a mistake. Maybe Tucker deserved to face criminal consequences. But I made my choice. What I did do was warn people. I reached out to mutual contacts in the tech industry, quietly, privately, and let them know what Tucker had done. Not out of revenge, out of protection. If Tucker tried to start another company, tried to find another partner, I wanted people to know who they were dealing with. Word spread. Within a few months, Tucker's reputation in the Portland tech scene was destroyed. No one would work with him. No one would invest in him. I heard through the grapevine that he'd moved to Sacramento, trying to start fresh. I don't know if he succeeded. I don't really care. As for me and StreamOps, we're still here, still growing. We hit $3 million in revenue in 2025. We're profitable. We're stable. But I learned some hard lessons. First, trust, but verify. Even with people you've known for years. Even with people you consider family. Have systems in place. Have checks and balances. Don't let anyone, including yourself, have unchecked power. Second, protect yourself legally. Document everything. Keep copies. Read every word of every contract. Don't assume good faith. Make sure it's in writing. Third, never, ever sign something without reading it. I thought I'd been careful. But Tucker had been forging my signature for months, maybe years. On small things at first, then bigger things. By the time I noticed, he'd built an entire false paper trail. And fourth, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Tucker had always been ambitious, competitive. I chalked it up to drive. But looking back, there were signs. Times when he'd pushed ethical boundaries. Moments when he'd prioritized winning over integrity. I'd ignored those signs because he was my friend. That almost cost me everything. I think about Tucker sometimes. We don't speak. After the settlement, he sent me one email. It said, "You won. I hope you're happy." I didn't respond. Because I didn't win. We both lost. He lost his career, his reputation, his stake in a company he'd helped build. I lost a friendship, lost years of my life to legal battles, lost the naive belief that partnership meant something sacred. The company survived. I survived. But we're not the same. Sometimes late at night, when I'm working alone in the office, I think about what Stream Ops could have been if Tucker and I had stayed partners, if he hadn't gotten greedy, if he'd been content with 50%. We could have taken the company to 20 million, maybe 50 million. We could have built something legendary together. Instead, he tried to steal it, and in trying to take everything, he lost it all. I rebuilt Stream Ops without him. It's smaller than it could have been, but it's mine, fully mine. No one can take it from me now. I've had other people approach me about partnerships since then. Investors, potential co-founders, people who want to help grow the company. I listen politely. I consider their offers. And then I say no. I'm done with partners. I'm done with equal stakes and shared control. If that means Stream Ops grows slower, so be it. I'd rather own 100% of something stable than risk losing 50% of something bigger. Maybe that makes me cynical. Maybe it means Tucker's betrayal broke something in me that can't be fixed. But it's the truth. I trusted Tucker completely, with my career, my finances, my future, and he used that trust to try to destroy me. I won't make that mistake again. If you're reading this, or if someone is telling you this story, here's what I want you to take away. Partnerships are built on trust, but trust isn't enough. You need legal protections. You need documentation. You need systems that prevent any one person from holding all the power. And you need to pay attention to the small things, to the moments when your partner acts in ways that don't quite align with your values, to the red flags you want to ignore because it's easier to believe everything's fine. Tucker didn't become a thief overnight. He became one slowly, over months and years, as he convinced himself that taking my share of the company was justified, that I didn't deserve it, that he'd be a better leader alone. And I missed it, because I trusted him. Now I trust systems. I trust contracts. I trust documentation. I don't trust people the same way anymore. Maybe someday I will again. Maybe someday I'll meet someone I can truly partner with, someone who values integrity over ambition. But until then, I'm building Stream Ops alone, one careful, verified, documented decision at a time. Tucker thought I wouldn't fight back. He thought I'd take the 20% and walk away quietly. He was wrong. I fought, I won, and I rebuilt. But the victory tastes different than I thought it would. Bittersweet, necessary, but hollow. Because in the end, I didn't just lose a business partner, I lost a friend. And no court ruling, no settlement, no buyout can give that back. So if you're building something with someone, whether it's a business, a project, or anything else that matters, protect yourself. Legally, financially, emotionally. Hope for the best. Prepare for the worst. Because betrayal doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with warning signs and formal notices. It comes during a 2-week vacation, when you think everything's fine, when you trust someone completely. And by the time you realize what's happened, it's almost too late. Almost, but not quite.